The day began quietly with the soft, lingering feeling of a colder season approaching. The air hinted at the coming winter, a gentle but unmistakable chill whispering through the spaces of their modest home. Hoai Ca knew the change was near because the teacher had reminded her to bring blankets, pillows, and personal belongings. More blankets meant the biting cold of noon would not reach Tony. The prospect of winter brought a quiet urgency to their routine. Preparations started early with small but meaningful tasks around the house. Breakfast was not just a meal, but a tender moment between them. The kitchen filled with warmth and the fragrant promise of food. Hoai Ca waited patiently, finishing her own meal while watching the familiar motions of cooking. Soon, the plan was to eat and relax without rushing off to work. The idea of staying home invited rest, a necessary pause in the relentless pace of labor. A reminder lingered in the air. The importance of not overworking, the wisdom of preserving energy by embracing rest when possible. The day offered space for simple tasks. Growing vegetables, sweeping the yard, cooking food. These small labors of love became the rhythm of the hours. Hoai Ca busied herself with errands, gathering squash for soup, readying stir-fry with meat, moving through the kitchen with purposeful ease. The day promised no work outside. It was a rare pause, proper and welcome. The previous afternoon's excitement still echoed. The memory of fireworks brought a gentle smile. It was the first time they had witnessed such beauty, spectacular bursts painting the night sky in brilliant color. Tony found joy in the children's play area, under lantern lights that danced with the spirit of the Mid-Autumn Festival. The festival was a celebration of children, where art and light mingled in models created for performances. These models were not mere decorations. They were attractions, large and magnificent, admired by many and costly. The festival stretched over half a month each year, entertaining children and adults alike, drawing visitors to their province with a charm all its own. Market trips followed with quiet errands, a rush to purchase meat from Thailand, carrying the urgency of tasks unfinished. The missed opportunity to buy new clothes for Tony lingered in Hoai Ca's thoughts. The tradition of new clothing for Tet, the Lunar New Year, held deep meaning. It was not only about appearance, but about joy and the fresh start the holiday promised. Tony's friends all had new clothes for school. The thought of him going without filled Hoai Ca with a tender sorrow. The desire to give him what others had, to not let him feel left behind. The wind was fierce, persistently tugging at flames, threatening to extinguish the fire needed for cooking. The local police suggested improvements for safety and efficiency. A stove with a protected compartment to shield the pan's heat from gusts. Their own house, a simple thatch structure, was vulnerable to the dangers of flying embers and spreading fire. They planned construction carefully, understanding the balance between practicality and safety. One stove would hold fire for rice, another for stir-frying meat. Such precautions brought peace of mind. Plans for Tet brought a deeper reflection on family ties and friendships. Would they visit Ha's mother and Ha for the holiday? Those people were dear, having saved a life and given new meaning. The day before Tet, Hoai Ca visited her grandmother with gifts, a live chicken and fresh eggs, tokens of respect and love. The reunion dinner was cherished, but timing and errands sometimes kept them apart. Visits with uncles and old friends wove through the days, moments of connection amid life's hustle. One companion, a colleague transferred just as Hoai Ca was, reached out and invited visits. Plans formed to visit her house and later Ha's, taking turns to share stories and comfort. The warmth of friendship mingled with tender revelations. Hoai Ca confided feelings of loneliness and loss. The response was love, an adoption of sorts, acceptance as mother and child. This new family bond brought joy and hope, a second chance to be embraced and supported. The gathering of siblings, the presence of mother and child, warmth and affection, these were treasures beyond measure, especially during Tet, the festival of reunion and new beginnings. Hoai Ca thought often of the grandmother, wishing to offer similar acceptance and love, but fear had held back the words. Now the path was clearer, the hearts more open. The scent of cooking food filled the home, promising nourishment and care. Conversations turned to the status of Ha Shin, a family member newly employed thanks to contacts made by Hoai Ca. The stability of work brought relief and pride. The rhythm of daily labor, days of sun and rain, shifts on and off, called for persistence and hope. A stable monthly salary was a foundation for a better future. Encouragement and support flowed from friends and colleagues. The kindness of others, the promise of promotion and salary increase, gave strength to continue. Ha Shin's own efforts showed determination, forging a path towards self-sustainment and success. Memories of the Mid-Autumn Festival lingered like the remnants of fireworks in the night sky. The taste of fried rice cooked with eggs for nourishment and strength brought domestic comfort. Hoai Ca recalled times past when meals were prepared by her mother after late workdays. The kitchen had always been a sanctuary of care and warmth, roles shifting with family changes. Tiu San, another figure in the family, brought energy and passion to cooking and eating, making culinary arts a personal joy and hobby. The kitchen remained full of life and shared purpose. The challenges of Hoai Ca's recent business trip came to mind. Work at a new place was difficult at first, unfamiliar yet promising adaptation with time. The need to find housing was pressing, complicated by limited options through the agency. Help came from the village chief and relatives, offering shelter and companionship in a new town. The remote countryside contrasted harshly with more convenient locations, roads rough and travel difficult. Unpredictable dangers required vigilance, especially where smuggling activities thrived, exploiting vulnerable ethnic minorities. The local culture and customs presented challenges of their own. Deep-rooted traditions included early marriage and school dropout. Efforts to educate and spread awareness met resistance. Habits held strong despite warnings. The village chief's words revealed a community hesitant to change, where silent acceptance maintained long-standing ways. Despite hardships, resolutions were firm. The slow shift toward better customs, education, and safety needed patience and persistence. The home life remained a refuge where small victories were celebrated. The fragrant squash from the market, the bonds of cooking and caring, the plans to build safer stoves and secure housing. The future was approached with realism and cautious hope. The dream to rebuild a decent house, to provide stable shelter, tethered Hoai Ca's heart and efforts. Living together with loved ones promised comfort and security after years of struggle. Daily routines blended labor and rest. Fried rice replaced instant noodles. Good health was cherished. The hard work of chopping bamboo for tomato trellises brought simple satisfaction, collaborative effort, a joy in itself. The garden began to take shape. Plans for arches to support creeping plants marking new beginnings. Invitations from colleagues and neighbors extended social warmth beyond the home's walls. Visits and shared meals knitted the fabric of community life, young children's laughter echoing alongside adult conversations. Moments of beauty and generosity punctuated the day. Evening approached without urgency. Friends waited with open doors and kind anticipation. Simple acts like tucking in a shirt or buying fruit mirrored deeper connections and unspoken respect. The youngest ones, just months old, stirred life and hope into the tapestry of everyday existence. Days filled with ordinary miracles and steadfast love, threading through the seasons and the festivals, through work and rest, through loss and new family bonds. The days following the quiet morning unfolded with the steady hum of life's persistence. Each movement in the household, each task undertaken, spoke of resilience born not from ease but from necessity and love. Hung and Hoai Ca navigated the changing season, feeling the chill creep into their bones as winter crept closer with steady patience. The preparations, small and deliberate, were a testament to the rhythms of rural life, where survival was interwoven with care and family. It was not just the cold that marked the slowing of days, but the weight of responsibility pressing gently but surely on their shoulders. Tony, the child around whom their world often circled, demanded thought, energy, and sacrifice. Ensuring his comfort during the colder months with extra blankets was small but symbolic of the larger efforts, the endless considerations that parenthood, especially in challenging circumstances, exacted. The layers of warmth they wrapped around him were more than physical. They were gestures of protection against a world that could be harsh and unforgiving. Within the home, the kitchen became a sanctuary of hope and continuity. The act of cooking, so routine yet so vital, brought with it the aroma of warmth and security. Hoai Ca's hands moved with practiced grace, bringing soup to boil, turning squash in the pot, and preparing meals that were as much an offering of love as they were sustenance. Between the chopping of vegetables and the sizzling of meat, a quiet conversation happened, a communication of care, the exchange of small encouragements, and moments of shared silence that spoke volumes. There was a notable rhythm to their domestic life, patterns built over countless days, shaped by necessity but punctuated by tenderness. The decision to stay home for a day of rest was more than a break. It was a crucial act of self-preservation. Overwork had balanced precariously on the edges of their lives, threatening exhaustion and depletion. The invitation to pause work duties, to tend to the house and garden instead, was a reprieve that bolstered not only the body, but the spirit. The act of growing vegetables was more than agriculture. It was an affirmation of life amid uncertainty. The soil beneath their hands held the promise of future harvests, a tangible symbol of hope. Outside the quiet pace of their home, the spectacle of the Mid-Autumn Festival blossomed with color and joy. The festival was a vibrant interruption to their routine, a burst of light and movement that invigorated both children and adults alike. The beauty of the fireworks, shimmering against the night sky, left an impression of wonder, a reminder that even amid hardship, moments of celebration and happiness persisted, weaving brightness into everyday life. Tony's delight in the play area, surrounded by lanterns and festive models, was a vital spark, illuminating a childhood that, despite circumstances, was filled with moments of magic. The festival had a broader meaning in their province, where it took on a scale and grandeur that attracted attention and visitors. The huge, intricate models used for performances were not mere decorations, but artistic statements that testified to local pride and creativity. These displays, carefully crafted and large enough to draw crowds, were costly and prestigious, the festival acting as a cultural anchor, binding the community together with shared celebrations rooted deeply in tradition. The pressure of provision swept in again with the ordinary errands that followed. The failed attempt to buy new clothes for Tony for the upcoming Tet holiday was a thorn in Hoai Ca's heart. Tet was not merely a celebration, but a renewal, a time when new clothes symbolized fresh beginnings and a chance to step forward into the future with dignity. The sight of Tony's friends in new garments brought a pang of guilt and resolve. Such moments underscored the inequalities woven through their lives, the tangible reminders that others' fortunes differed sharply from their own. Winter winds brought additional challenges at home, threatening the safety of their stove fire with relentless gusts. The conversation about building a safer stove with compartments to shield flames captured a blending of practical wisdom and community advice. The danger inherent in their simple thatched house was not lost on them. The flying embers could spell devastation. The plan to create 2 stoves, one for rice and one for stir-frying, spoke of a carefully considered balance aimed at efficiency, safety, and conserving precious firewood. These small measures embodied how every detail mattered deeply in their lives. Family ties and community connections moved at the heart of Hoai Ca's thoughts as Tet approached. The people who had saved a life, who had become part of their chosen family, were central. Visits with uncles, grandmothers, and friends created webbed ties of support and affection. The invitations and plans to meet friends transferred across houses were small acts that shaped bigger meanings. The emotional weight of these connections was profound, especially when layered with the pain of loneliness and the yearning for belonging. The story of adoption, of finding a new mother in another's love and acceptance, illuminated a powerful human truth about family. One extended beyond bloodlines. Hoai Ca's confession of loneliness and the response of acceptance became a turning point, a rekindling of hope and a restoration of bonds that transcended loss. The deep sentiment surrounding the notion of siblings supporting one another and the beautiful gatherings during Tet highlighted the richness of human connection, even in the simplest forms. The desire to see Tony and Grandma accept one another as mother and child was a tender veneration of the familial bonds desperately sought after in their lives. The courage it took to propose such acceptance reflected Hoai Ca's vulnerable yet hopeful heart. Beneath the surface of these personal stories, the daily realities of work and survival cast long shadows. The steady job Ha Shin had found, with a promise of stability and a monthly salary, was a beacon of security in otherwise shifting sands. The nuances of labor, rainy days, sunny days, days on and off, painted a picture of perseverance and adaptation. The economic pressures were relentless, but the small victories of stable employment and supportive friendships offered a path forward. Encouragement from friends, the hope of promotion and pay raises, and the determination to succeed all fueled the tireless efforts of those around Hoai Ca. Each meal shared, every kind word, and every gesture of support wove a fabric of resilience strong enough to carry them through the difficult times. The kitchen, again, emerged as a symbol of care, legacy, and energy, a place where sustenance was made with love and shared with gratitude. The reflections on recent travels for business, the challenge of settling into new environments, and the struggle to find housing further frame the narrative of adaptability in the face of uncertainty. The contrasting realities between rural remoteness and urban accessibility fascinated with their stark differences. The village chief's involvement in aiding housing, the presence of relatives offering shelter, and the eventual plan to live independently signified community interdependence, while also underscoring the desire for autonomy. The dangers of living and working in remote mountainous areas, with precarious roads, and the risk of smuggling, portrayed a nuanced environment where law enforcement intersected with poverty and desperation. The understanding that many engaged in smuggling due to dire circumstances rather than malice showed an empathetic view of the complexities involved. The warnings and challenges faced daily reminded all of the ever-present tension between survival, legality, and morality. Cultural norms and traditions, deeply entrenched in the community, were a source of ongoing struggle. The persistence of early marriage customs and the dropout of school for marriage presented a barrier to progress. Efforts to educate and change mindsets were met with silence or dismissiveness, illustrating the difficulty of unseating long-standing practices. Sadly, the inertia of tradition often overpowered the attempts to nurture change. The extended review of the people's resistance to change illuminated broader questions of identity, heritage, and progress. The slow pace of transformation, the cyclical nature of acceptance and resistance, and the need for patience underscored the weight of history and collective memory. Through all these complexities, the home remained a locus of warmth, hope, and incremental progress. The garden's growth, the plans for tomato trellises, and the shared labor of chopping bamboo were metaphors, miniature acts defiantly pushing back against uncertainty. The vision of a lovingly tended garden symbolized future growth and life, testament to Hoai Ca's unyielding spirit. The invitations to visit colleagues and neighbors, the social exchanges, and shared meals carried the underlying message of community cohesion. In these moments, the mingling of simple joys and shared sorrows created a balm for collective resilience. The presence of children, their laughter and needs brought life's continuum into sharp focus, reminding all that amidst struggle, renewal constantly awaited. The unfolding story stretched beyond individuals, capturing a portrait of a family, a community, a society caught between tradition and the promise of change. Through widening lens and intimate details, it revealed the multi-layered texture of human life, fragile, tenacious, hopeful, and rich in complexity. Winter's onset in their rural world was not merely a change of season. It was a transformation that touched every fiber of existence. The cold was not something transient or mild, but a pervasive force that seemed to settle deep into the earth and bones, shaping how life was lived and endured. It was a silence draped in fog, a breath held in anticipation of nature's slow, deliberate pause. The arrival of winter meant stripping the landscape bare, revealing the skeletal outlines of trees and the muted, somber colors of the fields. The lush vibrancy of other seasons surrendered to the austere palette of grays, browns, and fleeting golds. The rice paddies lay fallow, their muddy beds hardened by cold. Patches of raked straw and dried husks spoke of harvests past, while distant hills rose like watchful sentinels, veiled in mist. Their home, like many in the village, was a structure caught between the fragility of tradition and the slow creeping of modern improvements. Thatched roofs strained under the weight of relentless winds. Walls that once seemed sturdy now whispered of time's relentlessness. Yet these homes were sanctuaries from the biting cold that could sneak through the smallest cracks. Every draft was a reminder of nature's indifference and the necessity of vigilance. Inside, the hearth was the heart of the dwelling, the concentrated source of heat and comfort. The flame flickered and danced, casting shadows on walls adorned with simple belongings and reminders of family. That warm glow was more than physical warmth. It was a bastion against despair and a companion in lonely hours. The smell of smoke mingled with the aroma of cooking food, creating an atmosphere where family gatherings, stories, and laughter held back the chill. The winter clothing was modest and often patched together from years of wear. Thick layers of woven fabric, though faded and worn, were treasured shields against the cold. Children hurried through outdoor chores, their breath pluming in the air, cheeks rosy with the briskness. Many still went barefoot or wore simple sandals, their resilience a testament to childhood in the countryside. School attendance fluctuated with the season's harshness. Lessons took place in buildings that were often cold and drafty, with classes sometimes thinned out as some children stayed home to cope with the cold or assist family. Teachers made efforts to foster warmth and encourage perseverance, often asking students to sit closer together for shared body heat. The dreams of many children, to study hard and build a better future for their villages, gleamed brightly in eyes reflecting snowflakes and hearthlight alike. Winter also brought its share of hardships, thin meals stretched to fill hungry stomachs, the constant vigilance against illness that spread more easily in cold, damp conditions, and the physical toll of manual labor that grew harder with chilled fingers and tired bones. Yet amidst the scarcity, the sense of community and mutual support was strong. Neighbors helped one another gather firewood, trade goods, and share warmth. The village, woven tightly by years of shared experience, held together as a family larger than bloodlines. Outside the domestic sphere, the natural world continued its quiet dance with seasonality. Fields once bustling with activity slowed, waiting for the sun's strength to return. Trees shed their leaves in a final burst of color, reds flaming against the gray sky before falling to carpet the earth. Birds, fewer in number, sought whatever shelter and food they could find. The rivers, occasionally skimming with ice, whispered through the valley in steady murmur. The life of those who lived remotely in mountainous or forested regions was even more arduous. For families like Hung's and Hoai Ca's, reaching markets or social centers could mean navigating rough roads, slipping through muddy paths, or crossing cold, rushing streams. The distances were long, the journeys taxing, especially in winter when days were shorter and weather less forgiving. That isolation fostered a deep connection to the land and an intimate reliance on nature's rhythms. Despite the hardships, winter held its own special moments of beauty and meaning. The aroma of roasted sweet potatoes and corn cobs roasting over open fires in village squares created a communal warmth that transcended the chill. Children gathered around, eyes wide with anticipation, savoring the simple pleasures that punctuated their days. Songs and stories were shared in the glow of lanterns, weaving tradition and memory into the fabric of the long nights. Seasonal festivals, like the mid-autumn, which had been so vivid just weeks before, left echoes of joy that lingered even as frost crept in. The community's spirit was tested but not broken. The passing of days was marked by rituals, preparing herbal remedies to ward off illnesses, reinforcing shelters against wind and rain, gathering food supplies for leaner days ahead. The reliance on family and friends was absolute. Survival was a collective effort that embedded social bonds and reinforced shared identity. Within this winter tableau, Hoai Ca's world was small but rich in detail. Each day was a careful balancing act between hope and pragmatism. Her thoughts often wandered to the family, Tony growing amidst these challenges, Hashin finding stability at work despite difficulties, and the quiet yet steady presence of loved ones. The anticipation of Tet grew stronger, bringing with it dreams of renewal and the promise of warmth beyond the hearth. This season, though stark and demanding, carried a latent optimism. For Hoai Ca and Hung, it symbolized both an end and a beginning, the fading away of hardship and the patient waiting for growth to return. Their lives, entwined with the land and each other, bore witness to the profound resilience of human spirit in the face of nature's harsh canvas. The village where Hung and Hoai Ca lived bore the deep marks of time, hardship, and gradual transformation. Its landscape was a mosaic of memories and hopes, where every rut in the road, every patch of cultivated land, and every humble home told stories of generations. The approach of winter did not merely cool the air. It awakened memories of seasons past when struggle was even more fierce and the warmth of life more fiercely fought for. In those earlier years, harsh winds cut through the thatched roofs with merciless precision, slipping through cracks and corners where makeshift repairs could only do so much. The cold was relentless, sinking deep into skin and bone, often robbing the night of sleep and the body of peace. Families huddled together on thin mats on crowded beds, under threadbare blankets, their shared warmth a fragile shield against the dark chill. The night seemed to stretch endlessly, each hour heavy with stillness and longing for the morning sun. Such experiences lingered in the collective memory, carried gently in stories passed down through firelight and quiet conversation. Mothers had warmed small hands and feet by the hearth before bedtime, hopeful that the simple act might stave off the cold's bite just long enough for sleep to come. Children, despite the chill, ventured outdoors during daylight hours, their cheeks flushed, their spirits undiminished by the weather's harshness. Bare feet or worn sandals on rough paths were badges of resilience. Winter was a season defined not only by weather, but also by scarcity. Food stocks dwindled and meals were sparse, relying on the hardiness of root vegetables, preserved grains, and seasonal harvests stored carefully against the cold months. The story of the land was woven tightly with human survival, each seed sown and every sprout nurtured, marking a silent promise of continuity. The rhythms of planting, tending, harvesting, and resting were marked by the cadence of nature and shaped by the knowledge passed from elders to children. The children's journeys to school presented challenges deeply felt in winter. Schoolhouses, often cold and unheated, became places of shared warmth as pupils clustered together. Attendance dipped when weather and exhaustion conspired, and yet teachers persisted with gentle encouragement, understanding the limits imposed by poverty and climate. learning was both a beacon and a burden. The hope for a future better than the present versus the difficulty of enduring the harsh conditions of the present. Dreams flourished in their hearts, bright and buoyant despite the frigid air. Community gatherings around the hearth, whether at home or village centers, lent strength and companionship. Stories of ancient times, tales of heroes and tricksters, and folk legends filled the long nights. These narratives were more than entertainment. They stitched the fabric of cultural identity and moral understanding. Listening to the elders, children learned lessons of bravery, kindness, cleverness, and justice, all framed within the gentle glow of a fire. Winter was also a time of festivals and rituals that alleviated the hardships with moments of joy. Food, though simple, was prepared with care and shared generously. The roasting of corn and sweet potatoes, the simmering of hearty soups, and the preparation of preserved fruits celebrated the gifts of the earth despite scarcity. Lanterns glowed softly during festivals, casting enchanting patterns and lighting faces alight with the sweet anticipation of celebration. In the quiet spaces between these moments, life carried on with labor and care. The riverbanks, frozen and still, whispered of renewal in the coming spring. Fields rested under a blanket of frost, patiently prepared for sowing. Villagers gathered wood and prepared tools, tending to both the immediate needs and the long-term survival of their community. For Hoai Ca and Hung, the winter was a test of their bond and their endurance. The shared struggle brought with it immense tenderness and deepened love. Each meal prepared, each chore completed, and each shelter maintained was an act of devotion. The small household became a bastion against the outside cold, where the measurements of care and affection replaced the unyielding bite of the weather. The plans for a safer stove symbolized far more than practicality. It was a gesture of hope, a step toward stability and security. The fire that warmed and cooked was a living emblem of life itself, flickering defiantly against cold and darkness. When the wind threatened to snuff the flame, the struggle was felt not merely in physical terms, but as a metaphor for their lives' precarious balance between endurance and surrender. The story of Ha Xin's employment added layers of complexity and promise. The stable job, though modest, was a breakthrough in a life too often marked by irregularity and uncertainty. It offered a steady rhythm, a financial predictability that could ease anxiety and plan for futures. The interplay between personal effort, support from friends, and the encouragement of their community painted a picture of interconnectedness essential for survival. Success was a mosaic formed by collective hands, each piece reflecting mutual aid and shared dreams. Visits to relatives and neighbors expanded the circle of care and storytelling. The adoption story between Hoai Ca and her newfound mother underscored an important theme: family is chosen, not just given. This acceptance and love provided a second chance at belonging and healing, emphasizing resilience not just in physical survival, but in emotional restoration. Tet, the coming festive season, symbolized these values of renewal and reunion, a sacred time marking both cultural continuity and personal reconciliation. As days shortened and nights deepened, Hoai Ca's thoughts often returned to the future, to the child growing in their care, to the hope of a home built more solidly, to the life they might one day lead with fewer uncertainties. The dream of rebuilding a house, of creating a sanctuary that could withstand the wind and rain, was a powerful talisman against despair. It represented not just shelter, but a foundation upon which to build dignity and pride. The garden, with its tomato trellises and carefully tended soil, embodied this vision. It was a living symbol of hope and continuity, where the care planted in the earth mirrored that given to family and community. The cooperative effort in cutting bamboo and shaping arches illustrated how small acts combined to create beauty and productivity from simplicity. These moments of joint labor were celebrations of human connection and determination. Winter, despite its severity, did not diminish the joy found in shared moments. in laughter over meals, in visiting friends, in the spirited play of children. The village church bells, the laughter of neighbors, and the glow of lanterns in windows created a tapestry of resilience and community spirit. Life's rhythm pulsed steadily, undeterred by the cold, underscoring the profound human capacity to adapt and thrive against the odds. The broad picture of village life revealed the myriad challenges inherent in rural existence, but also highlighted the beauty and strength that arose from those challenges. The interweaving of natural forces, cultural traditions, social ties, and personal narratives created a rich tapestry of meaning and survival. It was a story of endurance marked not by tragedy, but by perseverance, hope, and love. Winter's relentless embrace softened gradually, signaling the approach of new cycles. Life wove its quiet patterns across the village. The long nights surrendered incrementally to the tentative brightness of dawn. The frost lifted reluctantly, its austere grip fading under pale sunlight. Signs of thaw appeared subtly, whispered through the budding branches and tentative growth in sheltered gardens. The air carried a fragile promise. Hung and Hoai Ca faced this transition with the tempered resolve of those who had lived through many winters before, tempered by hope that kindled behind steady eyes. The plans for rebuilding a home grew from dreams, whispered in the dark to sketches and discussions by candlelight. Every nail, every plank envisioned, held weight beyond construction, a testament to endurance and the will to create permanence in a transient world. Tony's laughter, a bright note against the muted landscape, became the pulse of their days. His curious eyes caught the changes around him, the slow reawakening of life in the fields and forests. The garden, once barren and cold, began to show signs of vitality. Tomato plants wrapped their slender vines around the hand-hewn bamboo arches. Earth, nourished by care and patience, yielded shoots brimming with promise. This small triumph was celebrated with smiles and quiet pride, a balm against the memories of hardship. The community around them stirred as well. Elders shared tales of seasons past, lessons etched deep in memory, stories that bridged generations. Some reminded of harsher winters, others of bountiful springs following lean months. The shared past formed a resilient backbone, an invisible shield forged in years of collective trial and strength. Children, now more regular in school, carried the legacy of ambition and hope. Their laughter threaded through courtyards and alleys, weaving new patterns in the fabric of village life. Economies shifted slowly. The stable job Ha Xin held provided a foundation for modest growth. Monies saved allowed for small improvements, the purchase of warmer clothes for Tony to wear to school, seed for planting, tools for cultivating the land. These increments marked steps toward stability, reducing the sting of uncertainty. Social bonds strengthened as neighbors helped one another foresee and face challenges. Market days filled with chatter and trade brought fresh vitality. Ceremonies became focal points for celebration and reflection. Tet, the festival of new beginnings, approached with its customary mix of reverence and joy. The preparation was intense, cleaning rooms, cooking traditional foods, arranging gifts and new garments. These rituals were anchors, reaffirming identity and community cohesion. The festival illuminated the village with lanterns, the glow flickering in eyes alight with anticipation. Family gatherings filled homes with warmth, renewing ties and shared histories. Hoai Ca remembered the adoption that had brought unexpected love and kinship. The bond with her new mother had become a source of personal strength, a reminder that family extended beyond biology. In the stories exchanged by warmth of the fire, she found healing, acceptance wrapped in love, a reprieve from loneliness. This emotional restoration was as vital as physical shelter, a sanctuary within the heart. The stove, first imagined as a necessity, became a symbol of stability. Its steady flame represented the persistence of life. Cooking meals became rituals of care, every simmering pot a balm against the cold. The kitchen, once a place of survival, transformed into a hub of community and memory. Meals were shared with neighbors and friends, laughter and stories weaving connections that fortified fragile human bonds against life's uncertainties. Outside the home, the land responded to the changing season. The deep earth, dark and rich, awaited spring's touch. Farmers prepared tools and plans. Seeds were selected with care. Conversations backlit with optimism debated planting schedules and crop choices. Traditional knowledge blended with small innovations, creating a dance between old and new ways. The enduring challenge of poverty softened slightly but remained assured. Scarcity, once the overwhelming backdrop, receded to a manageable presence. Hunger bouts lessened, though frugality remained a constant companion. The village's collective spirit, forged by years of hardship, adapted to the gradual improvement, remaining vigilant yet hopeful. The past winters, with their fierce winds and biting cold tucked into memory, formed a contrast to the present season of cautious renewal. Nature's cycles moved relentlessly, indifferent yet essential to the human story. The villagers understood themselves as part of this greater rhythm, participants in a grander design beyond individual lives. Their resilience was grounded in simple acts repeated daily: gathering wood, tending crops, nurturing children, sharing meals, safeguarding homes. The complexity and depth of these efforts embodied an implicit wisdom, a profound understanding of survival as spiritual as it was physical. Tony's growing years became markers of time past and future possibilities. His education, though humble, promised pathways beyond the village borders. His laughter remained a balm, a source of joy illuminating the quiet moments between chores and challenges. Finally, the vision of a rebuilt home emerged more clearly. Bricks laid on foundations of hope and shared endeavor. This house was not just shelter, but a symbol of endurance, love, and the unyielding pursuit of a better life. The community around them, strengthened by shared trials, had woven support networks that extended beyond kinship. In the embracing warmth of that home, with family and friends gathered, the story of Ly Hoai Ca and their child found its quiet resolution. Life would continue with its ebb and flow. Joys mingled with hardship, light intertwined with shadow. Theirs was a story of unbroken spirit, rising always with the dawn, steadfast as the mountains that cradled their village. The seasons would turn once again, the gardens would bloom and fade, children would grow and learn. The shared memories of cold winters, of fires tended, of hearts warmed against the chill, would pass down as gifts to those who came after. The story closed gently, a whispered promise that life endures, nurtured by love, community, and hope.